As Cut Copy, you've done pretty well in 2020, considering what's been going on in the world. You've been able to support New Order at Sydney Myer Music Bowl just as a pandemic was gripping the world, and then most recently released a new album. Whereabouts are you right now?
I'm actually in Melbourne. I'm back
Oh,
in Melbourne at the moment, which is sort of a blessing and a curse, really. It's good to be around friends, but can't see my friends at the moment.
no,
So like
that's...
everyone else, probably just waiting for restrictions to ease a little bit.
What was the process you went through with creating this new album? Did lockdowns and the pandemic get in the way in creating the new album and getting it finished?
Well, no, thankfully we actually finished the album last year. So it was in the can, and essentially we just sort of planned out a year of touring and kind of leading up to the album coming out second half of this year. So we sort of had that plan in place, and thankfully all the music finished because half of my bandmates actually live over in the States. So if we wanted to kind of work on more music at the moment, it'd be very hard. But yeah, we sort of we had it finished, and then obviously got a couple of shows in just before the pandemic really took hold, and then we were sort of faced with the question of whether we put the record out as we'd originally planned, or whether we hold off on that, or sort of do something else entirely. We were just sort of obviously scratching our heads a little bit on how to approach it. But in the end, we just decided that sort of regardless of whether financially it made sense to us, like we should just get it out, because I think people are in such a sort of difficult headspace at the moment and will probably really appreciate hearing some new music.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, people are still releasing music, people are still, creating music during this time too. With the process of creating this album, is it true that you wrote most of it while in Copenhagen?
Yeah, that's right. I moved over there probably that would be 4 years ago now, and I was living there for 3 years. So yeah, I was sort of relocated over there. For much of the touring of the last record, that's where I was based, and then writing this new album, Freeze Melt, I was there as well. So yeah, I guess that sort of different environment and different climate and just all the sights and sounds have probably helped shape the sound of this new album.
And what made you move over there? Was it to sort of have a different perspective on the world, I suppose? What drew you to Denmark?
I mean, I just sort of felt like it'd be nice to have a change of scene, both just sort of personally and creatively. And an opportunity came up to move over to Copenhagen. And it's a place that we played at a number of times over the years. I'd always really liked it. Really interesting city and sort of easy to get around and just sort of, yeah, I just liked the vibe of it really. So sort of relocated over there and kind of, yeah, just sort of got started with a whole new surrounding and a new kind of set of influences.
Where would you be in the world right now if it wasn't for the lockdowns?
Well, actually, we were due to be playing a show at Brooklyn Steel in New York. Oh, yeah, we would have been there today, I think. So yeah, that's kind of where we would have been in amongst our sort of world tour this year, which obviously we only managed to get two shows in, which is Adelaide and Melbourne. But yeah, so we would have been in the middle of a US tour at this stage and sort of playing in New York. But obviously for so many reasons that's not going to happen.
Are you sort of looking at when you're going to be playing shows next or anything like that?
Well, we have, I guess the outlook in Europe is a little bit different to what it is here at the moment. And they're actually booking a lot of festivals and gigs. And so we've actually announced a few. We've got I think sort of a couple of weeks worth of shows over in Europe in March next year, which we're hoping to get across and play. I guess obviously that'll be dependent on sort of how the virus is going, whether we can actually even travel out of Australia at that point. There's a lot of question marks on it. But we've announced the shows and fingers crossed it can happen.
Well, yeah, no, that's it. Well, hopefully it can. I mean, people are still craving live music. I guess it's just the safety of everyone is what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Obviously we want everyone at the shows to be safe, and we're not going to encourage people to come to a concert if it's not safe to do so. But we're trying to be optimistic at this stage, and if it does happen, that's great. And if not, then obviously we'll sort of postpone until whenever it can happen. But yeah, obviously these things get booked a long way in advance, so we've got to just sort of take a wild guess at this point and just sort of hope that things go our way.
What have you been doing during this time, Dan? Like during this sort of, lack of travel and things like that? What have you been focusing on?
Well, it's been nice getting an album out, to be honest. So I've sort of been doing a few interviews and things surrounding that, which is, it's sort of been nice to at least have something to hang our hats on this year. when I think for a lot of people it feels like a real wasted year. But I think just sort of having some sort of positive thing to focus on has been really good. But outside of the music stuff, I've been doing a fair bit of gardening and just sort of cooking and a little bit of painting as well. Just sort of trying to stay busy with just sort of simple things and, trying not to worry too much about all the world's problems and just focusing on things that I can actually control. But, it's definitely challenging. I think for everyone, obviously you have an expectation of what you'd normally be doing on any given day. And for us, a lot of the time that's sort of travelling around the world and seeing different places and, performing to people and not being able to do that has been sort of difficult at times. So I think just sort of trying to stay positive and trying not to kind of worry too much and just sort of, live sort of moment to moment.
Where are some of your favourite places in the world? Where are you missing at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, New York is definitely one place that we've loved playing over the years, and we just had some amazing shows and a really, great sort of fan base there. But yeah, I guess sort of in addition to that, South America is a part of the world that we've always had like really great tours, and it's just such an interesting sort of vibrant part of the world. Love to sort of get back there, and yeah, I mean, I guess so many places would be really sort of great to get to at the moment. But there's probably two that really stick out to me.
I've seen a lot of clips of you guys playing in South America and stuff like that, and the crowds are huge and they love it. They truly do love you guys. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, they do. I mean, thankfully for us, we've managed to get back there so many times over the years, and yeah, it's just sort of interesting. I guess, maybe you get a foot in the door in a certain part of the world, and then all of a sudden that's, it's like your passport to keep coming back. So I'm really sort of, keeping fingers crossed that we'll get back there at some stage. Because, yeah, it's just such a festive vibe.
Well, that's it. And do you notice, like, the crowds, are they more crazier, I suppose you would say, after you've released an album? Or is it just a dedicated fan base?
I think people are usually pretty excited to see us just regardless. We've done enough sort of albums and there's enough of a body of work there that people would be pretty keen to come and see us regardless. But I think obviously for us creatively, like we always want to have something new to say and a different sort of, a different mood to the shows that we're doing. So having a new album is usually the motivation for us to then sort of get out there and reconnect with all our fans in different places.
How does the band communicate during this time? I guess because you have been all living in different parts of the world, it hasn't made a huge difference how you guys have been communicating, really, has it?
No, that's right. I mean, we've been able to establish, a pretty good kind of way of working and connecting. I guess the only difficulty is just having less certainty about, what the future holds. I mean, it's just sort of harder to kind of find the motivation and inspiration to sort of dive into making new music when you've really only just sort of finished, a few years worth of work with this new album. So for us, usually it's sort of a really great reset to go out and perform to people and kind of that inspires you to go back and write more. So I guess it'd be interesting to see how we handle that, like not having that opportunity to kind of get in front of people, because that's obviously a big part of the inspiration and kind of factors into what you do next. Do
you feel like, during this time, do you feel more inspired about music, or you're sort of more keeping to just general life and, just trying to take it easy, I suppose, taking it more of a slight break in the world?
Yeah, probably the latter, I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a difficult time for so many people in so many ways. And obviously, thankfully, I haven't been sick and I don't have family members that have been sick or anything like that. But it still just throws up some pretty huge challenges. And, sometimes having so much time to think about, the world or think about your life isn't always the best thing. Like, you want to be sort of busy as well. So for me, I think it's been nice to kind of just sort of go, hey, you can't be too hard on yourself. I've always thought of myself as being pretty productive. So I sort of would be getting frustrated not being able to make the usual headway that I would in normal circumstances. But I think I've just come back to thinking, well, you just got to enjoy what you're doing and do your best to sort of like get through each day, with a smile on your face. And that's sort of the way that I've been approaching it. And I think, if you can kind of get in that mindset, then the rest will follow. So yeah, I'm sort of hopeful that we will kind of get back to making some more music sort of sooner or later. But at the moment, I'm just sort of happy, keeping things pretty mellow and just sort of, hopefully getting through this stage of lockdown into something more positive for summertime.
Well, definitely. And especially the fact you have just released a new album. That's usually the time that you can kind of like take a breath and go, I've done that, it's out in the world. Now let's
Yeah.
let that process
Pat yourself
happen.
on the back.
Exactly. And no,
Yeah.
definitely you should be as well, because it is it's a nice album. What are the main themes on the new album?
I guess it's sort of like some of our previous work in some respects, where it's really sort of looking at love and human relationships, but in this case, sort of in the context of the world becoming a little bit more sort of problematic and sort of some troubling things sort of bubbling away in the background. So, with an eye on things like, the climate and kind of the way that humans exist in the world, as well as relating to one another. So it's sort of, in some respects, sort of similar to the themes of previous albums, but maybe just a bit more, just like a slight niggle in the background, sort of wondering about sort of whether humanity sort of lost its way a little bit.
No, no, definitely very poetic there, I suppose you would say.
Yeah.
What are the plans, I guess, for the rest of the year? Then are you just going to take it easy and then just hope next year you can start touring again and playing shows? Like, what's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, we'd be keen to sort of to perform, like, even if we can do sort of, like an online version of what we do, based in different places. We've sort of been looking into how we could do that. And we actually almost, ended up doing a sort of remote concert thing. Unfortunately, it got cancelled in the end, but that's sort of something we might potentially look into doing in the second half of the year. But we also have a few more sort of releases and things coming out. There's a documentary focusing on the making of the record, the first half of which got released already just around or just before when the album came out, and the second half of that is coming out this week. But also there's a bunch of remixes that'll be coming out over the coming months. So yeah, there's some little bits and pieces, I guess, to keep people interested and hopefully keep the story of the album going.
No, that's cool. No, and so you should. You need to just keep, giving people, telling people you're still there. You're not, just releasing an album and going to sleep. You want to tell people that you're still, creating, and you're still wanting to, be musicians at the end of the day. And
Yeah, exactly.
and last but not least, Dan, do you consider yourself a beach, city, or country person?
Hmm. Well, that's an interesting question. There's definitely part of me that loves being at the beach, and I'm sort of I'm jealous of folks in Geelong at the moment being able to sort of get to the beach a bit more easily than I can. But yeah, I would have to say I'm a city kid. I've grown up in Melbourne, lived here most of my life, and probably might go a little bit stir crazy if I was sort of living in the country or sort of elsewhere. But having said that, I think going through this experience where you're essentially a little bit isolated from everyone else sort of made me think, well, actually, maybe I could live in the country. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad after all, because I do love nature, and like I said, I love the beach as well. So you never know. Maybe out of this comes a bit of a sea change for Cut Copy. We'll see.
Well, no, that's it. No, definitely. Thanks for chatting, Dan, and keep up the good work.